need people to be dying out on the streets, okay? That's just the way it is. Right here in Chico, we had a murder recently of a 34-year-old woman, okay? She was killed at a motel by some guy, okay? And she was a homeless woman, but she was enticed in. This guy had a room, and, you know, I mean, anybody can understand homeless woman. She'll get to take a shower, and maybe she'll sleep with the guy, maybe she won't. Well, whatever happens. Okay, this is my thinking on the whole thing. I'm speculating here. But it's a homeless woman, and now she's dead. She left 2 young children, okay, because some psycho just in whatever state he was in, I mean, desperate. I don't know what the hell's going on in people's mind, but when they're desperate, when they're desperately poor, and this is just, he only gets to have a room once every 3-4 days whenever he saves enough money from begging to get a room. I don't know what the hell. I mean, there's no social services for these people that I know of. Maybe there is. I don't know. There's maybe a lot of stuff I don't know about the social welfare system. But remember who created the social welfare state. Look at the Cloward and Piven strategy. The poverty is being created. But that's just one small example of what's going on. What this extreme poverty induces. Death. Death. It's very unsafe. It's against the law. In my mind, as a good American, it's a health and safety violation. There's all this talk about universal health care and all this crap. Did you know if you're homeless and you don't have an address, you can't get squat in the way of welfare? As far as I know, that's the last thing I heard. I mean, I know these laws are always changing as demand changes, as the economy worsens, but I don't know where people are living where the economy is getting so great. I don't see it. I'd see it in drying up extreme poverty. I'd see it in lower homelessness. Homelessness has doubled here in the last few years. Okay, under Obama's policies. He spent $10 trillion, effectively doubling the national debt in 8 years, and poverty exploded. The wealth disparity increased greatly. We should be looking at shrinking the wealth and income disparity. So how do we do that? We can do it gradually, but we've got to insist on sound economic policies that benefit everybody across the board. But again, it's political. And as I explained before, it has nothing to do with political affiliation. It has nothing to do with whether you're a socialist or a crony capitalist, okay? Whether you're a conservative or a liberal. They're conspiring against people, and a lot of this is happening on a subconscious, semi-conscious, unconscious level, just from our indoctrination, our training. We can't see the forest for the trees because we're so entrenched in it. Being told, no, this current system is logical. Somehow it all makes sense. And it doesn't. It's a lie from the pit of hell. The problems get worse and worse and worse, beating our head against the wall. Pay $50 billion a year into Section 8 housing. And when it goes through the economic sluice of society, it all ends up in guys like Rich Dad's pocket. An able-bodied man could go out there and dig ditches, but no, he's just going to be the biggest welfare recipient in the world and hide under the guise of, oh, I'm just a capitalist, I'm a good American. When all along, it's crony capitalism. All these people that lost their homes back in the 2008 bailout, okay, had their houses stolen from these liar loans. They knew these people were going to lose their homes, default on their mortgages. They knew that. They were liars. The banks knew it. They knowingly loaned these people money, knowing they were lying about their income because they make more money. Their loans were guaranteed, right? They socialized the debt and privatized the profits. They've stolen their houses, so there'd be a hell of a lot fewer rental properties out there if this whole thing hadn't happened. Let's just be honest with ourselves. That's the hardest thing. It's not an intellectual argument. It's just being honest, saying, yes, it's true. They need desperate poverty. They need people living in fear, or else you're not going to pay those exorbitant rents and mortgages. You're not going to be such a trustworthy and loyal slave to them anymore. You're going to object, and you're going to stand up, and you're going to say, no, I'm somebody. Okay, I have a right to exist. Okay, that's what it comes down to. But you're born a communist and you don't even know it. You have to pay property taxes. At birth, you have to pay a cost of living. From then on out, your parents will absorb it for a while, but you know, then most people aren't on a trust fund. Okay, then you got to pay it. You got to crack that nut. And it's just gotten harder and harder and harder as they keep raising the bar. And they tell us we're progressing because, look, it's a later time in history. This is 2017. This isn't 1965, buddy, when you could buy a house on a minimum wage job. This is much better now, when you need 2 minimum wage jobs just to survive and actually pay your rent. And then you can expect that figure to go up next month. And that's progress, right? That's what we're told. Well, because it's a later date in history, so we're progressing, right? That's evolution. When it's devolution, that's what it is. It's regression. It's anti-progress. It's antithetical to what is best for humanity at large. Everyday people, regular people, working class people, all people. Okay? It is the wrong direction to go. And a lot of people, I mean, vast amounts of people, are doing jobs right now that are going to be rendered irrelevant when problems start getting actually fixed. And it'll be much cheaper for the taxpayer. And who is the taxpayer? It's everybody. If you have to pay a cost of living, if you have to pay for goods and services out in the world, the regular economy, and compete with other people's money to do so, okay, you know your money's worth squat. Okay? So how did that happen? You think that's an accident? You think it's incompetence? No, it's a plan. This is what they want. This is how they stay in control. This is how they keep all the problems, all these problems we have, and all the jobs that revolve around them. Do you understand how critical it is that they keep extreme poverty intact? Desperate extreme poverty where people are living in fear. You either pay that cost of living or you're the next one that's going to be dying under the bridge, getting raped and murdered, okay? Or just dying from the elements. Your immune system breaks down. I mean, this is what we're doing. It's genocide happening right under our noses. And then we call ourselves a Christian nation. We call ourselves good Americans, and we tolerate this. I mean, good God Almighty, help us. Mercy on people's souls. But, man, we got to repent. I got the fear of God in my soul, man. I want to be right with him above all else. That's it. And I embrace all humanity. If I had my way, it'd be God's way. And I wish everybody listening to me would embrace that same spirit, that same idea, and understand that this is despicable. We have fallen so far by not caring about the least of men, like Jesus said we ought to be doing. And we will answer for not caring about them. We've got to put our foot down and say, if it gets us all killed, so what? It's better to live free than live on your knees, okay? I mean, we got to stand up to these monsters. We got to demand social, economic, political justice. We've got to get it. We've got to understand that this is the cause of all the abortions, all the various vices people get into for escapism, the drug and alcohol addiction, the prostitution. I mean, the world's oldest profession when money was invented. And then women started selling their bodies when they realized, hey, these guys are going to hold it over me. They want the advantage over me, so now I got to sell my body. This is where it all stems from. The dubious warfare, they couldn't get these damn wars started where we got 20 guys a day coming home and taking their lives. Never. This national debt, state debt, individual, it's all fraudulent. It's all a bunch of bull. So think of how many jobs we're talking about there. And in the crime industrial complex, the social welfare industrial complex, now with all these people that are working in the welfare industry, the social workers and everything, think about it. Think about the debt industrial complex, 25% of Americans in the financial services industry. Think of all those jobs that would disappear, and even super important jobs. Even ones like Alex Jones on the InfoWars, those jobs are going to dry up. If we dried up the problems, okay, that's it, man. Solve the problem. It'd be so much cheaper. You want your taxes to go down. This is how you do it. But understand, what am I saying? What I'm saying should not be seen as a threat or taken as a threat by anybody. I'm not going to take anything from anybody. Never. I would only add, because that's what I believe God would do. He would set us all free. Do you understand? And we've got to embrace that idea and say, if it's all right that I believe that I was born free with a silver spoon in my mouth and he was and she was, then I ought to embrace the idea that that's what God wants for all of us. And they have taken us the opposite direction, okay? They've never even really come close in history to showing us, yes, the system will work fine if you don't coerce people, okay, and force them through fear, financial insecurity, a very real, tangible form of fear, the threat of taking away the very roof over your head or the food in on your table, okay? Do you understand? That's some powerful mojo. There's some powerful crap they got going on there with the possession of the money. They hold the purse strings. These are the grand puppeteers, and we have to wrestle it from them in a nonviolent fashion, but using intellectual arguments, using logic, and saying, don't stand in our way, man, because God's will, make no mistake about it, is going to be accomplished on earth as it is in heaven. And yes, America is just as good a nation to start as anywhere. The rest of the world's looking up to America to step up to the plate and really demand social, political, economic justice in the land. We want the opposite of a wealth disparity, not by taking from the haves, but by allowing the have-nots to have through simple progress, through supply and demand economics. This is what happens naturally, not forced. You know, the opposite happens when you force it, when you manipulate and you subsidize industries. Then you see all these problems happening. The taxes go up. They have to go up. And so it creates all this animosity and division in society. And people think they're each other's enemy. Oh, it's the middle class, the bourgeois. Okay, they're the ones that are moving up, and, they're not letting us move up. And so, I mean, if the lower class, if the working class could get into the bourgeois class, maybe they wouldn't complain about it. Okay, we all want the good thing, right? We all want the good life. I wouldn't withhold that from anybody. Trust me. I love what I do. I tell you what, I stay on a kind of a bourgeois middle class property here. It's not mine, but I'm privy to stay here. And you know what? I was working on a vine over here on the east side of the property. It's a honeysuckle vine. Just this morning, just before I started making this video. Just doing my thing as a landscaper. I know what the plant likes. Plants like to be picked at. They like dead stuff removed. They like to be manipulated a little bit, but in a gardener-friendly way, right? So I know how to take a plant that say, wow, that's got an awful lot of dead leaves and debris on it and little dead branches. So I do my thing. I push it in, and, you can hear the little broken twigs in there breaking, and that's good. They like that, and they like to be manipulated. And it's a phenomenon of nature. I don't know how nature would do that. The vines, actually in nature, you see vines sometimes, and they get very unwieldy. And so God, he's using regular people to do his work, as like working on that vine. And he say, I like to take something that doesn't look so good, and I like to make it look better. I like to do what I do. What I do as a landscape gardener is an ancient trade. As far back as I know in history, you can go back and you can read about the gardens of this king or that king. I mean, this has been one of the things the noblemen, the rich, the elite, they've always enjoyed their gardens, okay? It's something that we share in common as humans. We enjoy being gardeners. So I like that fact. I like the fact that no matter what happens in the economy, I can still be useful. And the thing is I enjoy what I do. That's the most important thing. Everybody on earth can be a gardener, and most people are, because they enjoy it. There's something instinctive about getting down and pulling out a weed, or trimming a bush, being that artist, okay, that God put it inherently inside us, innately. We are artisans because God is an artisan, lover of beauty. But it's just a point on how we don't need to worry. Okay, we're going to have stuff to do. Okay, I don't know about the transmission mechanic that makes good pay, or the RV mechanic that makes good pay, or the plumber, or, so many other contracting jobs and all the other jobs out there. Okay, advertising, all this stuff. You can imagine the jobs that would disappear because they're unnecessary. When everything is free, we will be free, okay? We will be free to do what we want, learn from the experts. That's what teachers are for. Those are the leaders. If somebody knows something more than you, okay, then those are the ones we listen to. Okay, those are the leaders. So there is a hierarchy always in society. So even with full equality, it doesn't mean that we don't take instructions from each other. I mean, there's plenty of things I could say, tips of the trade for landscaping, for example, to save people a lot of work. And it's important that we share these tips with people and help them to do a better job, right? And so that's how it works. But we do have to face the reality that our jobs might disappear, because there's a million jobs that I could see myself involved in society just from, say, well, that's a good paying occupation, and that's what I'm going for, and that's why I'm doing it. And say, well, I don't find it too distasteful, but I'd rather be doing this or that. I mean, how many of us can say that really what I'm doing because it pays pretty good. That's why I got an education, or that's why I pursued this or that career. Okay, we can understand it. Okay, we all understand it. We all get that. But, we've got to understand how different it needs to be. And we've got to accept the burden of that knowledge and be empowered with it and share it and embrace it. Okay, that's what we're doing. And we're giving it to others. We're sharing it. One person, I say it to one person. That one person that listens to me shares it with somebody else. And we all understand the direction we have to move in, what our demands should be. That's what I would really like people to know. If they want to be knowledgeable and informed, educated on social, political, and economic issues, they've got to get to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the indoctrination we've all had to undergo, this training, this inculcation of madness and nonsense and deliberate deceit, trickery, And so they get us malleable, they get us pliable, they get us dumbed down. So we're soft and weak and disempowered. We don't know, we're confused, we're ignorant, our heads are spinning because we can't believe how diabolical these people are. And it is traumatic to come out of that and realize, yes, indeed, they're that diabolical and so much more. There's nothing these people won't do. I mean, enough said right there. Wrap your mind around that. They're murderers. They'll do anything. They don't kill heads of state. They don't care. I mean, they think of themselves as the gods of this world. And it's really a very sad state of affairs humanity is in.